Hello and welcome to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiaga. Today on Thursday, October 24th, to start officially Week 8 in the NFL. We got a good game on our hands tonight between the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams. That's supposed to kick off at around 8:15 Eastern Time, and there's some pretty big news surrounding that game, so we're going to get into that in just a few minutes. But also later on in the show, we're going to go through our usual game picks for Week 8 upcoming on Sunday. Also, there's some interesting comments made by none other than Jerry Jones again, right? Sharing some interesting thoughts about the reasons why the offense hasn't been performing so well. He gives those reasons over the radio station. We're going to react to that and a couple more segments coming to you guys later on in the show. So make sure to stay along for the ride and keep watching. But before we get started and jump into the first segment, the preview of Thursday Night Football, I'd like to remind you guys that if you guys have any questions or comments or just want to share any opinion during the live shows, please don't hesitate to do so. Your input is always a big part of what makes this show great, and we thrive on your guys' energy and your insights provided also through the live show. So now, if you want to make it absolutely sure that your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to do that just by using the new Super Chat feature. Just by clicking the $ at the bottom of your chat box, you're able to send in your Super Chat. In this way, it guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead and let us know what you're thinking. Hit the Super Chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive, as exciting as possible. Also, again, get involved with the show. Make sure to leave your comments or questions or anything you'd like to say, and I'll feature it. I'll say your name out loud, and we'll go from there. Just keeping it more conversational. But speaking of starting the conversation and getting right into it, we're going to preview the first topic, right? We're going to preview the first game of Week 8, a very entertaining one I'm hoping for in Week 8, because it begins with an NFC matchup as the Minnesota Vikings travel to Los Angeles to take on the Los Angeles Rams. The Vikings are sitting at 5-1 after last week just having lost their first game of the season to their division rivals, the Detroit Lions. Also, on the other side, the Rams are coming off of their bye week where they defeated the Las Vegas Raiders last week 20-15, getting their second win of the season. Now they're 2-4. Very different scenarios, very different paths to getting here, where the Rams have been very injured and now they're sitting at a record where a lot of people probably anticipated that they would be the opposite, right? 4-2 rather than 2-4, but those are the cards they've been dealt so far through the first few weeks. Whereas the Vikings, very surprising as well, 5-1. Nobody probably would have predicted that, especially because of the fact that you bring in J.J. McCarthy, you draft him. Everybody's got a lot of high hopes for him. In the first preseason game, he looks pretty nice. And, Sam Darnold, he's coming in. You're probably thinking it's going to be something like a Jacoby Brissett, Drake May scenario. Then, of course, JJ gets hurt, and he's out for the entire year. And Sam Darnold, just out of nowhere, picks up this offense like he's been playing in it for ever since he's been drafted, basically, it looks like. So, the Vikings, a very surprising team, but they're playing very good ball. So, that's great to see for them. And, other than just the facts, and this is an interesting matchup just NFC-wise, the Rams, the biggest piece of news that they have is the return of not only Cooper Kupp, because we sort of knew that a little bit towards, the beginning of this week, where head coach Sean McVay mentioned that he was probably going to play this Thursday, but also just developing today, their other receiver, Puka Nacua, was activated off of the IR, and he's expected to play in tonight's game. And I don't know if there's a snap count or anything like that, or, just how much he's going to play, but that's huge news, because that's really what's been missing from this team. The reliable weapons for the Rams now seemingly are going to play tonight. Well, they are going to play, but how close are they to, mid-season form as we approach that part of the season? Cooper Kupp has been out since September 15th in that game against the Lions, the game against the the Cardinals. Puka Nacua has been out since the first week against the Detroit Lions. So it's been a long time since we've seen them, honestly. We haven't really seen them at all. I think Puka only played the first half. So it's been a lot of talent missed for this Rams team. And not only that, this is also a matchup between Sean McVay, where he's facing off against a former member of his coaching staff, a member of his coaching tree, if you will, in Kevin O'Connell, his former offensive coordinator, back when they won the Super Bowl. Then he goes on and takes the Vikings job, and now they face off against each other as head coaches. So that'll be very interesting as well. Two guys that are very fond, very knowledgeable of one another. And also Sean McVay on Thursday Night Football specifically, in his first seasons, he has been having a record of 6-2 on Thursday Night Football. So there could be something there, do with that what you will. And lastly, Sam Darnold, he returns to Southern California, where he went to high school, and also where he obviously went to college at the University of South Carolina. A lot of different components of this game, pretty interesting to get to know. But looking at the Vikings first and foremost here in this matchup, there's no injury designation for Aaron Jones, so he should be good to go. Their offensive lineman, Dalton Risner, is questionable. I mean, I haven't seen any updates on the statuses of these players that could or could not play. So maybe towards the end of the show it'll pop up. But for right now, it's just still questionable for Dalton Risner. Their linebacker, though, Blake Cashman for the Vikings, is out again on a short week. And, just looking at this team overall, just from last week, not a bad game. Very entertaining game, I might add. But still, it just felt like this team definitely had their chances to win. They, of course, could have avoided that field goal, right, if the defense kind of stepped up a little bit more. But credit to the Lions for putting together that nice drive and, getting down into field goal range and winning that game on the road. But, there was the interception by Sam Darnold that he threw to Brian Branch and a couple third downs that they didn't convert on. Little things like that. It's not just one play or one drive, but definitely I'm sure they have plays or sequences or moments in the game where they felt that they could have won that game. But despite the loss, it's nothing to really freak out about. I think this Vikings team is still very, very good. And I wanted to talk about their defense too, because a lot has been said on this show about the Vikings defense and how good it is and just how impressive it has been with Brian Flores. And looking at this team through the first 7 weeks, their defense allows the second fewest yards per game overall. They've only allowed 17 points per game on average through this part of the season. And the running defense is among the best in the NFL. But the one caveat, which kind of fits into this return of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, is the fact that their pass defense for the Vikings is ranked 30th in yards per game, allowing nearly 260 yards per game through the air. So that's why, these developments for the Rams, Puka, Cooper Kupp coming back, could make a big difference, despite the fact that the Vikings have Stephon Gilmore, who hasn't playing very well. It's still a pretty big liability if they're almost ranked last in the NFL in yards per game passing wise. So that's something to look out for. And then on the other side for the Rams, Puka's going to play, Cooper Kupp's going to play. Their offensive tackle, Joe Noteboom, is out with an ankle injury, so those are really the biggest ones. And also Neville Gallimore and Braden Fisk, their two defensive linemen, are listed as questionable. I'd assume they'd play, but, you never know. We'll keep an eye on that. But, yeah, we talked about the Vikings defense, but also this Rams defense is something to keep an eye on, because right now, they're very young. They still have guys like Byron Young, Kobe Turner, Jared Verse is playing very well. Braden Fisk is also playing awesome, but they are still very young. And this young defense has allowed 25 points per game, and they're also ranked 30th in the NFL in rushing yards per game, allowing about 151 rushing yards per game. So, I don't know, if you have Aaron Jones on your fantasy team, make sure to start him. Make sure he's in your lineup, just based off of that. And their passing defense isn't the worst, but it's also not locked down by any means. So, the matchups, the keys to this game that we should keep an eye on are the Minnesota's the Minnesota Vikings, poor passing defense, like I said, they're ranked 30th in the NFL, going against Cooper Kupp in his return, and also, Puka Nacua also coming back. Will Stephon Gilmore follow one of them? Will he follow Cooper Kupp? That'll be something that would be interesting to know. Matthew Stafford could have a big game with his two weapons coming back, and just how much they incorporate the running game. But really, the coverage of this Vikings defense going up against the receivers, the skill position players for the Rams is going to be a great matchup to watch, and that'll have a big impact on this game, in my opinion. Also, the Vikings run defense, which is pretty good, the Vikings running game with Aaron Jones against this very young, very poor run defense for the Rams, because much like the Vikings are 30th in the NFL in passing yards allowed, the Rams are 30th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed per game. So, two different aspects of offense and two different sides of the ball for these two teams. So, which one can be taken advantage of more by the opposing team? And also to keep an eye on just the chess match between two guys that know each other very well, Kevin O'Connell and Sean McVay, two very offensive-minded coaches. I'm sure they run sort of similar systems, right, with Kevin O'Connell coming from Sean McVay's tree. That'll be something super, super fascinating to watch, and how it develops, how they call plays and stuff like that. So with that all being said, though, who do I think is going to win? Like with Puka coming back, I didn't think he was going to play. I kind of didn't want him to play because he just came back off of the injury. They just activated him, so I didn't think he was going to play at all. He could barely play too, which is a possibility, but I don't know. I just feel more confident in the Vikings. I think their offense is going to be too much for this Rams team. I think Kevin O'Connell really knows what he's doing, obviously, right? And I think he'll take advantage of a very young defense still, hit him with a couple play actions. I think Sam Darnold's going to be extra motivated coming back home as well. And even with Cooper Kupp back and Puka, I don't know if it'll be enough, if they'll be healthy enough really just to come back and look like they have been in the first couple of weeks. So also, the Vikings blitz a lot. They actually have the third most amount of sacks in the NFL with 24. I think that could also be something that affects the Rams passing game and could affect the connection to Cooper Kupp, to Puka Nacua. If, the timing is everything with receivers and quarterbacks. So if that timing's off, or if it's sped up and they haven't, really practiced a lot together the entire season, it could be something that affects this passing game and just makes the offense look a bit just not smooth, basically. So I'm going to go with the Vikings. I think they're just humming at a different level right now than the Rams. This could be huge, though, for the Rams, getting these guys back just in time if they don't trade Cooper Kupp away like we talked about. So those are my picks. That's what I anticipate happening in tonight's game. But speaking more about predictions and analysis, we're going to get to our game picks, the first part of our game picks in this next upcoming segment. We're going to go through 7 games in today's show and just pick winners, and I'll tell you guys why I like these picks going into Week 8. So don't go anywhere. We have a lot more coming up on today's show. We'll be right back.